Hola.
Hello, how are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's just been a
Good.
long day. How about you?
Yeah, good, thanks. I managed to get it working. Buzzing.
Thank you for obviously reaching out.
That's all
It's
right.
always nice to chat and catch up and whatnot. And
Yeah, no, definitely. I
yeah,
just thought it'd be great to get you on because obviously you've done talking in front of a camera before, you've spoken to your like PT clients and
yeah.
stuff, and obviously you took part in the whole challenge, which is awesome. So it'd be good to hear your thoughts about the whole thing. So the first one is literally who are you, where you're from, and what you do, really. I mean, I know, but for the listeners, what is that?
Well, I'm Roy Ritchie. I work online as a nutritionist and fitness coach. Easiest way to describe me. You know, it's more complex than that, but hey ho. And I'm from here. I'm from Aberdeen, born and bred. I've got mixed feelings about that, but you can't change it. So,
Cool. And do you have a fun fact about yourself other than what you do and where you're from and everything? Or maybe it's
oh,
part of that.
you know what? Not so fun fact, I guess, but I'm learning well, I've finally taken responsibility and ownership of learning Spanish after 15 years of trying.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's ace. I love it.
Yeah. So it's going good.
Yeah, because I'm actually working with a teacher now or a tutor. So yeah, it's kind of like the classic, you do the dip your toe in the water, download apps and stuff, and it doesn't do anything. But as
Mhm.
soon as you invest in someone,
Yes.
it accelerates things. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that. Please don't ask me to speak any Spanish.
¿Por qué no? Ah, that's ace. It's interesting that you say that because for me, I learned to speak Spanish when I was at university, and I felt that for me to be able to learn the language and kind of understand it more than just like a few things here and there, I've kind of taken the way that I've learned that into a lot of other things in life. For
Mm,
example, I felt that when I learned the most Spanish was when I was away in Spain, totally immersed in it. And it's the same with other things. If you immerse yourself within that environment, it becomes so much easier for your brain to just suddenly start soaking it all up. And it's the same with, I think, with most other things, whether you're learning some other skill, whether that's to do with, I don't know, Olympic weightlifting or even
yeah.
going out and doing open water swimming or swimming in general. If you immerse yourself in that, it's amazing how much it starts going in, you know? Um,
It is because you know how it is. People put blockers in place. I
yeah,
actually done a post on this today, or along those lines. In terms of if you want to learn something or do something or whatever, you create reasons not to, or
yeah,
why it's going to be difficult, or
yeah,
why you're going to be terrible at it. And as you touched on there, if you're in Spain, you've got no choice. You've got exposure, you've got constant exposure to it. So you've got no choice but to learn. And
yeah.
I'm the same as you. I've spent time in Chile, Costa Rica, and Barcelona.
Cool.
And I found when I was in each of those places, I learned loads because I didn't want to be the typical English speaker and be, oh, English, English. I thought, well, I want to try something. I want to try and order coffee. I want to try and ask for direction,
Do these
and
little things. Yeah,
yeah, and then people are good in most of the time. So they will see that you're trying, and it's like you were touching on there. If you want to learn lifting or hiking or whatever, if you make a conscious effort and ask the right people, people will help you,
yeah,
and it's the case that like you've got to do it.
yeah. And it's kind of like taking that into to the dip, the dip a day challenge, which is what we did. We tried to dip every day in October. And I kind of had that feeling from you as well, where it's kind of like you immersed yourself into it because you kind of knew that you had to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like everyone else is there. I'm going to immerse myself in. I'm going to make myself go every day because if I don't, then I won't do it. So I feel like it's a similar kind of
Yeah.
vibe going on. I might be wrong, but that's just the way I feel.
No, I mean, I was going to give you an example, but I'm sure we'll get there anyway. But I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't thinking about it. saw your like the Seashell posts and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, that's a cool idea.
But I'm not going to do it.
But yeah, and I just thought, oh, yeah, it's cool. I never gave it any thought. But then when I went down for the first day, because I go for dips on a weekend anyway, and Callum looked at me and he says, "Oh, are you going to do the challenge?" And my immediate answer was just like, "Yep." And I didn't create reasons not to. Instead,
Yeah.
I started to compile reasons why it would be beneficial.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm sure we'll kind of get into that, but
Yeah, no, definitely. So tell me then, how long have you been dipping or swimming or going into cold water? Is this a new thing, or is this something that you kind of dabbled in over the years?
I'd probably say about 14, 15 months now.
Okay.
Um, so how it started was, do you remember the group, Wet Bandits?
Yes.
So I used to obviously follow them. I don't know how this is going to sound, but it was a me problem. So I'm
Okay.
just going to underline that. And I like the idea of it. I like the idea, oh, that looks really cool. Like, you know me, I quite like pushing myself to experience new things and somewhat extremities. And I kind of thought, I like this. But then when I looked at their social media, and I guess this is a little bit of a segue over to anybody who runs a social media account. Be careful on what you post and how you post it, because it might not come across the way that you're intending it. And like I said, this is a bit of a me problem as well, or it was. But what I saw from that is it felt like a popularity contest,
Got you.
because whenever I would see the stories and stuff, I just kind of thought, I want to do that, but it doesn't look like my people, if that makes sense. And I was wrong, but the reason I was wrong was they were showing the people who were there to be quote unquote insta famous, as opposed to the people who were doing it for the community aspect, the mental
Got
health
you.
aspect, etc. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So it sounds like those who were more into doing social media, they were posting
Yeah.
more, therefore it was being seen more. Whereas
100%.
there were people there who maybe weren't posting. Like I met some really amazing people through the exact same, group,
Yeah.
but they would not have been posting it on their social media because they just wanted to go there and be there. But because it was such a big thing, you had
Yeah.
such a range of people coming from all walks of life. But I understand what you're saying. It was like
Yeah.
those that were posting it on Instagram were almost trying to portray that this was like a fashion statement thing. So I get
Yes.
that totally.
100%. And that was a detractor for me. Like I said, nobody's right or wrong here.
Mm.
And so I felt curious. I was constantly curious. I followed him. I thought, oh, it does look great, etc. But you know yourself, as lockdown ended and summer started to begin and stuff, loads of people just stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And it just so happens, I know someone who was part of that, and he tried to get me to go down loads, and I would always kind of reply to his Instagram stories and stuff like that. And one day he just says, "Look, come down," and I says, "Ah, mate, I don't know. It doesn't seem like my crowd. Again, me problem sort of thing."
Mm.
And he says, "No, no." He goes, "All those social media, like, we'll just say attention seekers, again, sounds bad, but he says they don't go anymore. So the
Mm.
people who have remained are the people who, again, it's like the core community, etc.
Yeah.
So right enough, I went, and there was about 6 or 7 people, and they were super welcoming. They had they developed a friendship. And they were, like I said, they were really welcoming, and I went into the water and I loved it. So I ended up going every Tuesday and Thursday for as long as I could with them. And when the clocks changed last year, that obviously meant we couldn't go at, say, 6:30 in the morning anymore.
Mm.
But all of the other people who were there, they worked 9 to 5. So going a little
Yeah.
bit later just wasn't an option for them. But
Yeah, it's quite
because
difficult.
yeah, exactly. But because I'm relatively flexible, I started to reap the benefits, especially the
Mm.
mental health benefit side of things. I just loved it. I loved how it felt. I love how it helped me feel more connected to myself. and disconnected. Again, working online, you're on your phone loads, you're on your laptop loads, so you feel like you're constantly engaged. And I just love the feeling of it. So I didn't want to stop, but then again, it came to I need to keep pushing myself further outside my comfort zone. Therefore, I need to go my own. And that's what happened. So I just started to go twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday, just whenever it would get to a little bit lighter. And it was just me, all throughout the year.
Wow.
The months I went on New Year's Day, and there was a number of times where it was horrible. I'd just be in the water on my own, and it was raining. And when I would come out, you would get the odd dog walker who would just be like,
What are you
"Oh,
doing?
you're mental." And I'd be like, "Nah,
I know.
you're the mental one for not going in, you know."
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
so I
did
just
you,
kind of kept
sorry,
it up.
did you prefer going on your own? Like, and I know
Ooh,
that you've now done the Seashell Day challenge, and your mind's probably changed then, but it's interesting having spoken to you about these kind of influencers and other people, because I guess
yeah.
it's understanding that, and this was kind of like my mindset, because I initially had that feeling too, but then I kind of thought to myself, do you know what? At the end of the day, as long as these people are going out and they're trying this, then it doesn't really matter who they are, what they look like, what they're doing. However, I do understand it's similar to other things in life. For example, if you were to go to the gym and there were people there, would you force yourself to do a gym session with these people that you might not necessarily gel with? Or
Mhm.
would you prefer to go on your own? And I guess it's that kind of similar thing. Yes, everyone's got this kind of, yeah, let's
Yeah.
go and do this. But once you then start doing more regularly, if you can find,
Common ground.
yes, either on your own and you accept that you actually prefer doing it on your own, or you can find a group of people, because I think that is what's happened, is that the wet bandits were fantastic to get all these people out there. You got people
Yeah.
who'd never tried it before, people who were really self-conscious, people that really didn't care, they just went for it. But I think now these like kind of smaller subgroups have then started, and then you've got Swim for Aberdeen, and you've got people who go 6 a.m. every morning to actually swim. So it's been amazing for me to kind of take a stand back and look at all these different groups of people that have started. But it's
Mm.
interesting you saying that you went on your own.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you prefer that, or whether you would like to go with more people.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of want to come back to something you touched on there is like as I mentioned before, that was obviously a me problem, and like I created a reason, like I wanted to go, but it was almost like I was creating a reason not to,
Mm,
if that makes sense. And I totally agree with you in terms of if it gave someone something within a tough period of time, even if they didn't love it, if it was a proxy for meeting other people, especially in a lockdown period, then
mm,
if they had no interest in the water or continued that, if the water was the proxy for them to get together or meet new people and feel a bit more connected in a tough time, then 100% that's amazing. And that's an experience and a memory that they will always share,
mm,
as opposed to just saying, you know what, um, yeah, I'm struggling just now, and I'm just going to continue struggling for personal reasons, and that's that. And you touched on it there from a gym perspective, and you can look at it from so many other ways. For example, I've got a long-term client who did a marathon last year, and she did it for charity. But as soon as she'd done it, and as soon as she finished it, she said, "I'm never going to run again." It was a bit extreme, but she said, it's great that I've pushed myself to be able to do that. And I will continue to remain fit and change my training schedule, but I will never like run to that extreme again.
mm.
So it's something, again, that's a bit of another example of that. But yeah, coming back to, sorry, what was it you asked again?
Do you prefer going out by yourself, or
Oh,
do you
yeah,
prefer
yeah.
being with other people?
Oh, you know what? I prefer the group.
Mm-hmm.
Before, I would probably say it depends, because there was moments where I felt like I desperately needed it,
Yeah.
and doing something like, say, a walk or a meditation on my own or journaling just wasn't going to cut it. So being in the water for 5-10 minutes or something did that. But then from a habitual standpoint, where I would say, oh, it's Saturday, I'm going to go in the water, and I would feel a little bit bored I would go in and I'd be constantly checking my watch and just being like, oh, can I go out now? And there would be moments where there would be, in those moments, sometimes if there were other people in the water, as like a group in that, I would kind of like attach to them and start a conversation or something. So again, I think it, from a solo standpoint, it was very contextual. And I think, if you're in a group, it's like anything. If you found a group of like-minded people, and it's different, and that's exactly what I found in the challenge, of course, just meeting so many like-minded people, developing some really cool and amazing friendships in such a short space of time. And you saw that last weekend when there was a weather and obviously nobody was going in the water, and you saw straight away, I had a couple of one-on-one conversations where it was kind of similar in terms of, I feel a bit sad we're not in the water and not seeing each other. And someone actually said to me, I'm more sad because I'm not getting to see everybody.
Yeah.
So again, the water was there as a proxy to have fun, just remove kind of the day-to-day thing and have an amazing experience, and having a laugh with just, again, cool people and friends.
Yeah, no,
So
definitely.
I don't think there's, for me, it goes in two different ways. Like I said, it depends on what I'm looking for. I would be hard pushed to go in on my own now. And I think it's because I have the option to go with other people, and not as a dependent thing, more because I look forward to spending time with them.
Got you. I guess now you can also, don't necessarily have to go swimming with them. You've met these people that you can go and do other stuff with, like go for a walk or drink a coffee or whatever, which is really, really nice to see. And I've seen you guys have been meeting up as well, which is it's awesome. The next question would be, or it's kind of like a couple different questions, is why did you decide to actually do the challenge? Obviously you heard about it, and obviously Callum said, oh, you should do it. Like, what went on in your brain that you were like, yes, I'm going to do this? And how did you feel physically and mentally throughout that month? Because I know that for me personally, there was times where I was like, this is easy, this is fine. I mean, it was very different for me because I did mine in my barrel. I just literally just jump in and out. But there were times where I was like, I really don't want to do this, but at least you had other people there to kind of keep yourself accountable, vice versa. So why and how did it feel physically and mentally?
You know what? A friendship that I feel really proud of is the one with Carl. And as I mentioned, he just kind of looked around at me. I'd only ever met him once before, so it's not as if he was kind of putting pressure on me or I felt obliged to say yes or whatnot. But he did just look at me and say, "What about you, Roy? You in?" And as I mentioned before, I immediately said yes. And then when I thought about it, and again, I don't know if you saw it, but I kind of wrote a post on it, and it was more the case of I get SAD syndrome really badly over the winter period. And
as do I.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I did a lot of work with my therapist last year on trying to change the perspective of it and change some behaviors and habits to again enjoy it a little bit more and recognize the effects. And that was one of the reasons I thought, you know what, I'm preempting this feeling going to come, it's coming quite quick. So I thought if I push myself to do something like this, I don't know what I'm expecting from it, but at least I can look to change my routine, do something that I really enjoy doing, and possibly have that filter into the winter period, and again have a different perspective. I mean, that was my main motivator to do it. Like, that I had no motivation to be like, oh, I'm desperate for friends or or anything like that. That just happened, and one of the things that you mentioned there was the second part where you says about the difficulty and whatnot. And an interesting one was, again, something I spoke to my therapist about in our last conversation, and we were chatting about this. And she said that you not only benefited from accountability of having other people there. What you also did was you showed yourself and you showed other people your reliability.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was an interesting one. And you noticed that obviously over the course of the month, going to the beach ballroom every morning, it was always me and Carl, and anybody else. And then Emily eventually, she came in about, I think it was like the fourth or fifth day. So it'd be me, Carl, and Emily, and anybody else who was there was there.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a weekend when I was in London, so I had to do the 2 days in the bath. But other than that, we could rely on each other,
Yeah.
but we also knew we were going to have, we were sharing the experience. And you did notice very, very quickly that there was, as you said, friendships were developing, and that was really cool. The difficulty side of things, I'm going to be honest, the difficulty was probably on the poor weather days. So if it was freezing, or if it was really windy, or if it was windy and raining.
Yeah.
And what you would obviously do, or what I would do, is you would turn up at the beach and you would just be like, "Oh, no, this is going to be horrible. This is going to be horrible." But again, because you're in it together, you would get one or two people starting to be a bit more energized, gassing each other up and stuff like that. And Carl then started to take his Bluetooth speaker, so like songs would come on and stuff. But as soon as you were in the water, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And
Yeah, it could
so
be pissing down with rain or whatever. It just doesn't matter.
So you realize the most difficult thing was getting into the water. Now, so many folk think the difficult thing is the water, but that quickly becomes irrelevant. It's the water actually becomes like an experience of solace.
Mm.
You just love it. And and I'll tell you what, one of the cool things, and I take my hat off to Carl for this, is it wasn't just a case of just going in the water and kind of floating about for however period of time and just being like, oh wow, like what you been up to? I mean, yeah, there would be days where the water was calm and days where it was like crazy. And I personally love the crazy water. It's just because
just playing it.
because you just turn into a kid, like well, I do anyway. You turn into a proper kid. You're getting thrown about. Everybody's laughing. It's just ace. I love it. But then there was moments where Carl would, he would create like little things. So we ended up like catapulting each other up in the air. We would do like synchronized stuff, like almost like, and it was just little things like that. And it would always be like, what could we do? What could we do? So it turned into a bit of fun. So it turned into, whether it was 5, 10 or 15 minutes, we would always just do something that took everybody out of their comfort zones. But regardless of your personality, you got involved.
Yeah.
Because everybody was involved, and you were part of a group of people who were just having a laugh,
Yeah.
And I do want to say though, one of the hardest things was learning what to look out for in terms of how long you've been in, if you've been in for too long. And there was a few moments where I was definitely in too long. I would come out and I couldn't use my hands and stuff, and it was a bit like, oh, okay, too long.
Yeah.
And I started to recognize the feeling, like I would feel it in my hips and my core, the temperature would just completely drop there, and I would just go, right, okay, I've got about another minute and I'm good. And but then sometimes you would get FOMO, because if you came out and other folk were still in, it's like, oh man, like they're still in.
Definitely. And it's also just like figuring out that some days you'll go in and it's really cold outside, like it's windy, for example, and you'll think, oh, this is going to be really cold. And then you go into the sea and you're like, actually, this isn't so bad. But then also the same can happen. You think, oh, this is not so bad. It feels quite warm outside. And you go into the water and it's freezing. And it's interesting how your brain will play tricks on you. And it's the same thing. You think you're fine in the water. You're just swimming around, playing around, and then suddenly you're like, when you start thinking about it, you're like, I'm still in the sea here. It should be cold. And then you suddenly get out and then you're freezing. And then it becomes really hard to put shoes on. And then you gotta then rethink, right, maybe I should bring different shoes this time that are maybe a bit easier to slip on, or, you think about all these different things. And other days, you just feel buzzing and euphoric, and it just feels absolutely fine. So it's really interesting how that works. So obviously you said that it made you feel sometimes cold. when you got out. Do you think that can be pretty dangerous for people that you were with, or did you feel that there was a collective community, right, let's make sure everyone's going out together?
Yeah, there was a sense of responsibility. One of the things that I took on board, because I've got a Garmin, so I'd be a bit of a timekeeper sometimes.
Okay.
So if it was like a really cold morning, we would say, right, let's go for about 5 minutes. So even though we'd be having a bit of a laugh, I would kind of shout over to Carl or something, or someone, or whoever I was out in with, if it was Jess, and just be like, right, that's 5 minutes. And then we would just be like, cool, let's go. We'd all come out together. And it was just, sometimes, there would be a bit of a responsibility in terms of like looking after other people. Like if you saw somebody struggling a little bit, like, which rarely happened. But if someone felt like an undercurrent, they would be quite vocal about it, and just, so it wasn't like you struggled in silence. Oh, what will people think about me? You were taking responsibility and letting other people know. And that also lets other people feel safe as well, because if they are struggling and they need help, they felt safe enough to just say so, and someone could, like, that never happened. But I'd like to think that that had developed. But to be honest, moments like that rarely happened. Yeah, there was one morning where the water was a little bit high, and it was honestly, it was such a beautiful sunrise. And Carl had the GoPro, and he says, "Oh, go up on the bollards and jump in." So I was like, "Yeah." So I'm climbing up and I'm walking along, and he's like, "Mate, you're gonna have to hurry." And I was kind of looking at him, and I'm thinking, like, okay, well, it's not like it's not like Carl to say something like that. Yeah, he totally likes to have the brave face. So I jumps in, and he's like, "Cool, here's a camera. I'll go and jump in." And then immediately I knew what he was talking about, because I had like a foot on a rock, but the undercurrent was just pulling you. Like, the top looked fine, the surface looked fine, but the undercurrent was just pulling you all over the place. And I was like flapping and stuff, just trying to stay upright. And then I was the same. I was like, "Dude, you're gonna have to hurry here, man." And then he jumped in, and then Schwab, he then comes over and he's like, "Oh, film me." And I'm like, dude, you're gonna have to hurry here, man, because I am struggling. And I started to feel it, because you're using so much energy, and obviously your body's using energy to stay warm as well. And once Schwab jumped in, we then started to kind of swim back, but the current was pulling me back. So I'm trying to swim with a GoPro in my hand, and I'm running out. I'm struggling to breathe in that. So there was moments like that where, we did come out, and we kind of looked at each other, and we just thought, oof. You could see how people run into danger quite. And
it's like rip currents. It sounded like that was potentially a rip current, or the beginning of one. Just as the water's coming in, and that can be pretty scary. It's like, for me as a strong swimmer, I mean, I say strong swimmer like in comparison to the average, I've been swimming all my life, but it's understanding that no matter how strong a swimmer you are, or weak a swimmer you are, if the water is going to do that, or the current is going to pull you in different ways, there's very little that you can do. Yes, you have control, and a lot of that control comes down to your breathing and being able to stay calm, but there's only so much control that you can have in water like that. So it's knowing what to do, and I guess having a group of people there can hopefully calm you down, because it can be scary. There's been a time where I was swimming from Bridgedon to Fitty, and the woman that we went with has been swimming for years along the beach, and for some reason the tide came in a lot earlier than she had thought it was going to. So I was a little bit further in front, and I only just got out just at the Fitty end as the water was coming up the ramp, and I'm looking back to the others thinking, they're not going to make it. They're going to get stuck here because the water's going to go right up. And it was pretty scary. And she got out and she was like, I just don't know what went wrong there. Like, it wasn't supposed to come in this early. So, you can do all the research and think that you know everything, but actually sometimes it's not quite as it seems. So it's then just going, right, that's why we have things in place, like making sure that people are with you, or at least telling people that you're going to be there, or wearing tow floats if you're going to swim more rather than just dip, so that you can be seen, and having these things in place, because it's really important. You know what I mean?
You're always at the mercy of the elements. I've obviously, well, I say obviously as if people listening or watching is going to know, but I do a lot of hiking, and recently did my 100th Munro over in Skye.
Amazing.
It was honestly one of the scariest things I've ever done.
Really?
But that's one thing. If I'm on my own, if I, just regardless of the Munro, but if it's somewhat difficult, I'll text all the details to group chats and stuff and say, right, this is where I'm going. I'll touch base with you. It should take me this long. I'll touch base with you when I finish. If you don't hear from me, here's my Garmin alerts and stuff like that. So I'll always just say to people, just in case, because people, you're touching on there with the sea as well. It's easy to underestimate and just think, you know what, like I'm pretty good at this or I'm pretty good at that. But as soon as the weather turns, there's very little you can do. Very little.
100%. Yeah, it can be quite terrifying, but also beautiful at the same time. So I think it's important to be aware of that. And I think when you're in a group, it's a lot easier to bounce ideas off each other. Like there's been times where we've gone to meetups or we've created meetups and I'm like, look, we need to think about this. The others might not realize, or people say to me, oh, we need to think about this. So that's what I really like about being in a group, is you're a bit safer as well. So yeah, so the next question, I mean, I'm probably, you maybe did, you maybe didn't, but was there anything or any things that you learnt during this whole experience of dipping every day for a month?
Oh, you know what? The simple one is just try new things. I'm very much a growth-minded person. However, we're human at the end of the day. As I mentioned previously, we look for reasons why things are going to be tough, what it may require of you, worst case scenario, all these different things. But this is how we grow as a person, it's, you find communities, you find friendships, you tap into self-awareness, and that requires stepping out of your comfort zone. And nobody's expecting you to kind of show up and be like center of attention and all guns blazing. I don't think anybody was like that. I think that happened once we realized there was no egos. Yeah, there was no egos. Everybody was there to try something. I'll tell you what I did love about it is how welcoming everybody became, or everybody was, and everybody became more so.
Yeah.
Because there was instances where new people would come along and, they were instantly welcomed. They enjoyed it. Some of them, became a part of the core group and stuff like that. But I'm kind of detracting, like moving away from it a little bit. I guess the important thing for me is the importance of connection and authenticity. That's a huge thing. Authenticity is an important value of mine. And if I ever feel like something is off or wrong, from a personal perspective, I kind of fall back into my values and what am I not standing by with. And authenticity is a big one. It's an easy word that gets thrown around as if it's something you can just pick up and drop. However, one of the things I did do over the course of the challenge was ask myself most days how I want to show up. If I didn't sleep well, how do I want to show up? If you don't sleep well and you feel a little bit fatigued, it's easy to fall into like negative talk and verbal negative talk or anything like that. But is that the experience that you want to leave for yourself or for other people to be in your company and stuff like that? So it definitely challenged me to question these things and show up the way I want to show up, like and to leave like a positive experience with myself and other people. As I mentioned before, like I'd be lying if I said like every day was amazing. Like they weren't, but the experience of being there with other people, and as I mentioned before, the accountability, and there would always be moments where we would just be laughing and stuff. And it's moments like that we really take it for granted. We take genuine laughter. We take the importance of compassion and empathy, thinking about others. Say being in the moment. There were so many, it's these small things, and they all came together. They all came together quite frequently. And one of the things that I would always kind of touch base with myself was, would get to like lunchtime and you'd remember back, oh, like first thing this morning, like I saw this incredible sunrise and I was getting thrown about in the waves, and and I was just like laughing and talking about certain things with whoever was there. And then Carl would make the GoPro edit, and there was a few of them that I just watched back so many times because I just thought, like, even when he did the whole month one.
Well, that was me.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was me.
Like, you did an amazing job.
Thank you.
I watched it over and I just sat here in total silence. You know how it is. We live in this instant gratification world now, where a 15-minute video, there's no possible way we could watch 15 minutes of a video. But I just sat there and watched it, and it just brought back so many memories.
Because you're totally right. Like, quite often making YouTube videos, ideally it's about between a couple of minutes and 12 minutes is kind of like your range. Because then people will switch off really quickly nowadays, just because our brains are like, right, what's next? And there was this kind of feeling, there's so much content in here, I'll just make it a couple minutes long. And as I was editing, I was like, do you know what? No, because the people who are going to be watching this are the people who were there, and that's who I'm making this for. It's not for other people who have not been within this. I mean, sure, if they want to watch it, then they can, but I'm doing this for those who were there. And every day you'd have people like yourself and Callum and Emily, whoever, who would turn up pretty much every day. But then there were other people who only came once in a while, and I thought, I need to make sure that I've got a little snippet from every single day. And then once I finished it, I was like, this is cool, because you can see how each day was different, even if it was the same people that turned up, but it was a memory, And like, so for someone like yourself, you can look back to that whenever you want and go, I remember this time or whatever. And I think that's what people forget with these kind of challenges, especially when you video it. You have a memory that I just think it's so cool that you guys all did it and all went together at the beach, because this is something else I was going to say, is that touching back on what you said earlier about wanting to turn up and kind of being in a kind of positive mindset and leave with a positive mindset. Sometimes that's really hard to do, and sometimes I've turned up to an event, it's not necessarily swimming, it could be anything, and I've just really struggled, whether it's because I'm on time of the month or there's other things going on with my life that my head's just not there. But pretty much every single time that I come away from doing something, especially when it comes to being in cold water with other people, I always end up leaving feeling better, like always. I remember one time when Emily first started coming to the dips, because she came to me for swimming lessons a while back, and I was like, you need to come and do these dips, blah 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 blah. And I remember her being so nervous, because she was like, I'm going to be the only new person here, everybody's going to already be kind of like, not cliquey, but as in like everyone knows each other. So I don't really know if I want to do this. And she came along and she was like, why didn't I do this earlier? I was like, Emily, I don't know, because there was like 4 or 5 other new people there that day, and it just didn't matter, and I remember being in the water with her and a few other people, and I wasn't feeling well that day. I remember it so well. This was her first time. I wasn't feeling really great at all. I didn't want to be there, to be completely honest. My head, I don't know what was going on, but I remember just going into the water, and for some reason, my inner child came out, a bit like what you're saying. I was just like screaming and like singing and making all these noises, and we're chucking a ball about, and to others I must have looked like an absolute weirdo. But it was just like, oh my gosh, it was like, that's what I needed, I just needed that little bit of kind of, whoa, here we go, here's just spark into your life that you're needing at the moment. And it's so easy to think, oh, what am I going to do? And people might say, oh, you shouldn't need external factors, but I think your environment is really important. So why not use nature and use the outdoors to try and help with whatever's going on? So a bit like what you're saying, I think you've got to understand that sometimes you can go to the sea, for example, and not feel it, but when you leave, you feel like a different person. And that's like my dad always said, or always says, whenever you've gone for a swim, you always feel after it, always, usually. So yeah, I just love it personally.
I mean, like a quick story on that one, it's quite funny, because obviously you'd invited me to Seashell stuff so many times, and
I was like, come on, Roy, you gotta do it.
And I'd always, sometimes I would have genuine excuses and sometimes I wouldn't. And the one I did show up to, that Friday, I did have a long day and it trailed over. And I remember you said it started at 5, and I think I got finished at 6. And I was like, oh, I can't go now, I don't know anybody. And I think I was going to Asda to get some stuff. And I went, you know what, just go, and you don't need to do anything. Just go and say hello, show face. And and it's funny because like anybody that knows me knows how, like, I'm completely introverted, but once you get to know me, it's one of those things. It's almost as if I'm completely charismatic, but I am in my own. Anyway, so I shows up and I saw you and I just stuck to you like glue. So I was like, oh, Coralie's the only person I know. And then it's just like chat. And then I thought, oh no, like I'm totally taking up her time. She's supposed to be seeing other people.
Not at
And
all.
but then eventually you did. But then I saw Michelle from Plant Prep.
Yeah.
And we spoke a few times online, but never in real life. So I went and then attached to her. And then we kind of spoke for a bit. Then she was like, "Oh, I've got to go," and I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, sorry." And then I thought, right, okay, well now it's time for me to go. And then I went back to you to say like bye, and I kind of left. But then I was a bit like, "Oh, well, you know what? At least I went. At least I
100%.
went." Because I felt
100%.
really, really uncomfortable, and it's funny because Carl was saying that he saw me that day and he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I was kind of hoping you would come and play come and play volleyball and stuff." But it is it's one of those things. Like I wrote a post. I know I've kind of reverted to a few posts, but I wrote a post yesterday about anxiety in the gym, and I used a couple of examples of you're going to get anxiety when you start a new job. You're going to get anxiety if you move to a new city or start a new hobby that's group based, because you're placing yourself into a new social scenario. And again, you start to create a narrative of your own personal insecurities. What will people think of me? Da 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 da. Now, I'm 6'3", shaved head, beard, tattoos, etc. Like I always kind of jokingly say that I look like a Neanderthal or like a bouncer or something. And I just kind of think, you know what, people are going to think the worst case scenario about me, so I may as well just kind of be me, and that's that. And a couple of people throughout the challenge, not they didn't come out and say, "Oh, I got you wrong," but they did say that, "Oh, I did think this."
Mm.
And I was wrong. But you know what? It says a lot for them that they came forward and said that.
Yeah.
But as I said, if I use like I kind of preempted that thought anyway. But if I use that as an insecurity, that it's not even an insecurity. It's just like I don't know what you want to call it, but it's been a long day. But again, we will all use these things as reasons not to do this from a social perspective. But then if that's from a social perspective, the social perspective will give you a crutch, and it will give you help to then again do the thing, i.e. the dip. Whereas if you say to yourself, "I'm going to go for a dip, I've seen it on Instagram or whatever, I'm going to go myself," there's so much more friction. There's so
Yeah.
much more friction,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you've said it. I'm sure you've seen it yourself. I've had people who said to me they want to do it, but this, but that, and I've said, come along with us."
It is quite difficult, and something that we've spoken about in person before, because like I know I get anxious even going and meeting new people, and because you have that subconscious, "Oh, I wonder what these people will think of me," even though like you don't necessarily care, and you're kind of, for me, I'm used to just going out and doing stuff, but it's still kind of there, and I think that's why whenever I make posts, I try and always emphasize that even if you don't come and swim or go for a dip and just come and chat with us, at least you're getting your foot in the door and you're seeing who everyone is and understanding that you probably won't be the only one there that's turning up for the first time, and that you've got such an array of people, like so many different people, which is what I was going to get onto, is that I've had a few people, I think you've also had a few people as well, saying to you, "This isn't for me because I'm not comfortable in my body to be able to put a swimming costume on and go out." Now, I've even been like that, where I've been like, I don't want to go out in a swimming costume. I'm going to put my wetsuit on because I don't feel comfortable people seeing my body, or I don't feel comfortable in my body. So I'll put a wetsuit on. And if that's what I was thinking at the time, fine, so be it. I put a wetsuit on. And there's people that have come who've put t-shirts on, or who've put trousers on, or they've put whatever, or they've not even gone in. Like some people have just come to watch, and it's really interesting
one person I was just gonna jokingly say somebody actually turned up in steel toe cap working boots and jeans.
Yeah.
Sorry, I totally ruined your flow. I apologize.
We can tell whatever they want. But yeah, no, it's you have to be safe, I guess, as well. But no, it's just understanding that I get it. I understand why people would be a little bit hesitant to do it, because you are, I guess, exposing yourself to go out into the water, and that can be scary. So that's one thing, is how you physically look or how you physically feel when you're out there, because there's people who are walking by that might look at you. So it's going that in the back of your head. And also the other main thing is confidence in the water, because I know for a fact that there are people that come to dip who would not feel comfortable physically swimming, I've had some people come to me for swimming lessons because they want to be able to be confident enough to go and dip, you know. So these are two massive things that can be very scary. But I think once you then get to know everyone and understand that nobody cares what you look like, nobody cares who you are or what you do, as long as you're having fun and you go in there and you can be yourself. And this is why I think for me, like when we first started doing Seashell, we didn't have as many events as we do now. And I was very much wanting to push the events, and Callum and Dave will tell you that. I was like, no, we need to do more events. And there was sometimes we were doing our Friday morning dips and there was hardly anybody turning up. Now they've become more popular, but at one point they were like, maybe we should scrap them. And I was very much like, no, we are not scrapping these, because I know that there's people who will come once they understand, and they'll come especially because it's in the morning, because there's less people there. But it's, for me, these events are giving people the space, almost a safe space, ideally, in a group of people to be themselves. And that's very difficult to find these days. So that's what we're trying to create, is opportunity for people to truly be themselves. And I think once people then get out there and realize that we are being ourselves, then go, right, I should have done this ages ago. Emily is a perfect example. She was really hesitant to begin with, and now she's going all the time. And it's amazing. It makes me so happy. So, and I remember you said that you had somebody else, I don't know if it was a client or a friend, who was like, that's not for me. You guys are all ripped and blah, 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 blah. I'm not coming to this.
I was
You're
just
like, no.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on that.
Yeah.
You know, something I said to you recently was, and I've said it to Carl as well, is, you know, when you look at companies like yourself, or just companies in general, you know, a lot of companies miss the most important thing, and that's the people. And that's how the company makes people feel. Now, I don't know all other outdoor apparel companies, but Patagonia do this really well. They've got they're strong in their values and they're strong in their identity, and they give the company a face of who's part of it. And I said to you both, you guys do this really well. You know, it's not about, oh, look at the cool beanie, look at the cool bag. It's look at the people who wear it. Look at their experience wearing these things. You know, as you say, going for a dip, being in the river, you know, anything like that, being part of a community. These are things that are important to people.
Yeah.
And yes, it's a very powerful marketing tool, but for you guys, it's the truth. And that's really, really important, because it's a strong value. And if you're very open with your values and you display them very easily, again, you'll quickly attract people who find that attractive, you know, who may have similar values or may want to develop those similar values. But coming back to what you were saying there about the comfort thing, this is in twofold. Like the first one, as you said there, in terms of people going in the water, there's two people I know for a fact that one of them is a good friend of mine, Claire, who was actually out running with me and Dave this morning. Yeah, she just cannot put her head under the water. And every time she's been down, we've looked at ways to kind of just get her to go in. You know, she'll let waves like smash her in the face, but she won't put her head under the water. You know, and there was a couple of other people who eventually did, and were just like and they were really, really proud of themselves that they'd done it, because it was a huge fear.
Yeah.
You know, but for other people, just putting your head under the water, it just feels a bit like, well, what's the big deal? But again, there's a form of encouragement, not judgment. And that's a huge thing. There's not shame. And that kind of takes me on to the other part where you're saying people are conscious of their bodies and stuff. And as I mentioned, there was a friend of mine, he's been dipping for ages. And he reached out to me maybe in the middle of October. And he was just kind of like, oh, Mr. Ritchie, you know, we've not spoken a while, da, 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 da. And I says, oh, you should come down for a dip. And he says, I've seen your Instagram. I'm too conscious of my body to come down because you guys are all in shape. And I quickly just, you know, I listened to him because, again, it's important that he's listened to. But then I kind of thought, is he seeing what he wants to see? Is he letting his insecurities? Because in the videos, yes, there's myself and Callum, who he's probably reverting to. But every other people there is just kind of everyday bodies.
Yeah.
But again, probably projecting a little bit and seeing me and Carl and being like, look, those guys clearly go to the gym. There's no way I can stand next to them. It's going to highlight my insecurities. And I understood that there was nothing I could say. He would have to come down and experience it for himself. But then something I said to both Dave and Callum was, I've been going through a bit of a tough time for the last 3.5 months. And October was like a bit of a tough one. So I'd gained a little bit of weight and I felt very conscious at the start because I was carrying a little bit more weight than I'm comfortable with. And I'd probably say for the first 10 to 14 days, give or take, I was feeling very, very conscious about, taking off my top in front of everybody. And I just thought, right, well, you can only experience this by taking off your top, so you're just going to have to. But I was very, very conscious of it. And in the tail end of it, that fell away. And when I told Dave, he just kind of thought, me standing next to you, you wouldn't think it but then it's one of these things. One person might think just because someone's lean or got a bit of muscle or again, wherever they are in the spectrum or wherever they view themselves within the spectrum, they always view someone else as better in some capacity. But we forget that everybody's got their own insecurities and insecurities themselves. Some of them are a constant, but some of them just appear for whatever reason. Like I said, from my perspective, I gained a bit of weight and I was going through a tough time, so I was a bit low mentally and emotionally. So it made me feel a little bit exposed in how I felt physically and how people viewed me physically. But anybody looking maybe wouldn't have thought that. So then
they'd be like, "Oh, Roy's got the dream body. What's he talking about?"
But then that's what I mean in terms of that's why it's important, and we've said this term before a few times in this conversation, is the importance of creating a safe space, the importance of seeing the person, making them feel welcome. And I tell you who does this really, really well, and two people do it, is Dave and Avril. And the first time I met Dave, I kind of wondered, do I know this guy? Because he stood and waited for me to come out of my car and he kind of waved and he was big smile on his face, shoot my hand. And I was kind of like, have I met this guy before and I've just forgotten? And I felt bad. And he was like, I've seen you and all the Instagram and whatnot. And I was like, he's just a nice guy, And Avril's the same when the first time I met her again. And I got one of my best friends to come down for his first dip a few weeks ago.
Amazing.
And the same thing happened there. He immediately felt welcomed. People were peeling away from and going over to him for one-on-one chats, asking life questions. And I was like, you know what? How often does that happen in a group scenario? Really?
Really never.
Because normally it has to be the person who has to integrate themselves.
Yeah.
But in these scenarios, it was the opposite. People were detaching or, pulling the person in.
It's kind of
it's a rare thing.
Yeah, it's almost like when you're in a group like that, it's not that you get sick of your group at all. It's almost like another person, another person we can add into this, so it's almost like the excitement of having a new person be able to experience what you've experienced. That's exciting, when you know how good it is for you physically and mentally, you want others to join. But it's a bit like you're saying about your friend or your client that didn't get it or wouldn't get it unless he came along. That's the same with what we do when we dip. It's like you can't really force people to do it, but once they're there, they then get hooked. So it's like, you've come and joined. So I guess it's that kind of like another new person into the community that's just growing and growing because you're excited for them. You want them to experience all the good things that you have. So it's really, really exciting for sure.
It's a ripple effect as well,
100%. Is one person starts to do it, then more people see it. I think something that we're planning to try and do, I think in January, is to try and do some sort of challenge where we're trying to get more people involved. We're not 100% sure what we're going to do yet, but we're looking into it. Just because we just want more people to experience it. And I know that you are doing your 5 a.m. challenge at the moment, which is super exciting, and you're getting ready to do, I think, either a half marathon or a marathon with Callum at the end of the month.
Definitely
But are there any other challenges or any other things that you are now doing or would like to do, having done the dip a day challenge? Like something that you've gone, do you know what, I did this, in the future I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm going to complete this. Maybe there isn't.
Nothing springs to mind, to be honest. It's I think if there was anything that came to the back of my mind, all the things that we've spoken about here in terms of the benefits of, again, pushing yourself out there. Like I'm a big fan of journaling.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to record these things, these moments, these feelings. They're people say you collect scars or whatnot. They're essentially that. They're reminders. You've got to keep reminding yourself of these moments, because again, if they're fleeting, you're always just going to go through relearning those experience, approaching new frictions and barriers and boundaries and stuff like that. So it's important to refresh these things. And again, the 5 a.m. challenge is a perfect example of that. Some people, when you tell someone, oh, we're getting up at 5 a.m., again, what do you think of? Like if you tell someone that, the immediate response is like friction. Oh, I could never do this. Like let's line up more reasons as to why that's horrible, but we're not trying to be hardcore. What we're trying to do is show people the benefits of, if they get up at 5 a.m. Nobody's done it every day. But when we get up, we set our intentions for the day, what's important to you, and whatnot. So in terms of the challenge, I would probably say the Spanish thing, if I'm honest.
Cool.
Because over the last couple of weeks, especially this week, I've took a bit more accountability on it and organized it a little bit more and looked at my intent, what I'm learning, what I need to improve on, why it's important to me, and why it needs to come higher up in my priority list. Again, because what I recognized was when I wasn't doing that, it made me feel bad.
Yeah.
It made me feel like I should be doing better.
Yes.
And I obviously didn't want to feel that way. And I'm accountable to, my tutor. And so I've kind of taken those sort of things, like these putting things in place to follow through isn't difficult. We tell ourselves that they are. We create reasons, we create narratives and stories and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if anything, the dip a day challenge, it just shows you that it's possible to push yourself into new things. Like, look at all these things that people want to do now. You've got so much women, or guys as well, doing like pole dancing classes.
Yeah.
How many people would look at reasons not to do that? Oh, I'm not strong enough. I'm maybe a little bit overweight. I mean, they would be the most two common ones I can imagine. But again, insert a reason not to do it.
Yes.
However, similar to you guys, so many of these like teachers and coaches now are showing amazing experiences, something like pole dancing. Again, hiking, all these, there's so many different things. It's just showing people that at the end of the day, you get one crack at this. You get one crack at life. You really do.
Yeah. 100%.
Do you really want to, be on your deathbed or have it taken away from you like tomorrow or something and say, you know what, I told myself I could do all these things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And even if there's something that's not there, like, again, an event. The word I mentioned earlier was value. Like, look back at your values. What's important to you?
Yes.
Is it community? Is it, is it learning? Is it laughter? Is it trying new things and stuff? Like, attach things to your values.
Yeah. I think people just get really scared of, like what you said, of the what ifs, but then it's understanding. And I guess that kind of, for me, a lot of it's to do with resilience as well. And I think as a society, we quite often lack in that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to push yourself hard all the time. But I think what it means for me is that you give yourself the opportunities to go and try these new things. Or even if they're things that they're not new, you just go and try them. Because like in the swimming or the dipping, you learn learn what it's like when it's cold. You learn what it's like when it's not nice, so that you can then go, do you know what? This is what I need to do to deal with this. And I can then take that experience and then take it into other experiences. So I know, like, I've had experiences, and I'll probably end up speaking about it at some other time, where I didn't think I could carry on with what I was doing with my swimming, but I managed to. And whenever I'm struggling with things in life and like other things in life, I think back to that moment and go, but you can, you can. So I think that's that kind of similar thing where you need to have these experiences and push yourself to have these experiences to then actually realize that you're so much more capable than you. But it's taking that first initial step and going, do you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it a go. And I think ideally, the more people that are doing this, the easier it will be for people to take that first step. But for me, like you're saying, with getting into the water, that is often the hardest part. It's just getting in.
An interesting one, like two parts there. An interesting one I've started to do recently. Well, I say recently, I started on Saturday. Because I wasn't in the water over the weekend, I was like, I kind of want that effect. So what I did was, at the end of my shower, I put it down to cold and I just stood in it for 30. Well, I say 30 seconds. I just said, you know what? I'm going to stand in this for 10 deep breaths.
Yeah.
Saturday was a bit horrible, but I came out feeling amazing. So on Sunday, I did it again and I did 12 deep breaths.
Awesome.
And then this morning, again, after the run, I just went, you know what? I got to 10 and I was like, let's go to 12. And well, today's Tuesday, so it's 4 days now. But what I've noticed is it doesn't feel as horrible as you think. Like the first time did, Saturday did, but Sunday, Monday, and today actually felt all right. And today I actually thought, you know what? I could stand under here for a while.
It's amazing what the brain can do, isn't it?
Yeah, but again, each time I've actually came out of the shower feeling great, just like more energized, a lot more alert, like singing away and stuff. And
the thing is that you may have never done that if you'd not gone out and done these dip a day challenges. You may have done, but it's almost like you needed those experiences to go, do you know what? I reckon I could do this. And that might come to other people in a different way. So it might be that someone else has a different experience. And they go, do you know what? I'm going to try this too. So it's interesting how that's happened with you. And now that your brain's gone, do you know what? I can. Which is exciting. So it hopefully means that when other things come up for you, instead of you going, no, I couldn't do that, you're probably more susceptible to going, yeah, I'll give that a go, you know?
Why not, you know?
Exactly. So to finish it off, what's one piece of advice for anybody looking into going dipping?
Be informed and safe. You know, if anything that you're taking away from some of the things that we've said here is something can look very deceiving. So be informed, you know, speak to people, look at apps, like plan it beforehand. Don't just say, I'm going to go here and jump in the water.
Yeah.
Which sounds ace, but it might not be.
100%.
So yeah, like do your homework, be informed where you're going to go. Again, things like temperature and stuff like that. It's kind of like we were saying before, plan for the worst case scenario. It's better to plan for it and not need it than need it and not have it.
100%.
Yeah.
It's like what I always say with kit, like take too much kit.
Yeah.
Take your robes, take your beanies, take hot water bottles, take hot chocolates, take loads of extra clothes and 3 pairs of shoes and just have them in your car or wherever, just in case. You know, you'd rather have too much than not enough. And then, you know, something to go wrong. And
don't think of the worst case scenario, because again, people, like we've said before, you think the first thing is the cold. This is going to be horrible. Like, you know, I'm going to be in and out, etc. It's uncomfortable. The first time you go in, the first time I went in, I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
I was trying to talk to people around me and they all kept looking at me and saying, breathe. And that's the important thing, is focus on your breathing.
Always.
You know, the first thing to do is just focus on your breathing, deep breaths, none of this like just regulate things and honestly submerge yourself into it. One of the things that we did straight away was run straight into the water and jump in. And what we found that helpful, because you were just ripping the Band-Aid off. Yeah. I'd recommend something like that, because again, you're going to feel it in your hips. Just go in. Just go for it. Experience it full on. Yeah. Exactly. Well, I think our thing is about to finish there. We could just speak for hours and hours and hours. But
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this little interview. It's going to be cool to see what people think of it, and hopefully get other people who've done the dip on as well, to show their experiences, because everyone's different. So yeah, well done as well for your Halloween costume and winning a robe. Awesome job, and good luck with your Spanish and your 5 a.m. stuff and your running stuff. And hopefully I'll be in soon to do a dip. I don't know when, but I will see you soon, I'm sure.
Muchas gracias.
The call of the eagle. Move so fast, even more when I'm caught not looking. Stuck in distraction, what am I doing? I don't wanna be here, so you know I'm gonna leave. Better off true outcast on my own, call it disconnected. Only I know what's best, and it's not love and a pixelated fantasy. Digital